We're going to do things a little bit differently than normal if you've been on a best practice webinar before. So welcome back. I'm Adrienne. I work with the Bonusly CS team, and I do enablement and programs here at Bonusly. And I'm really excited to actually have a special guest here with me today, Debra, who is our Chief Customer Officer at Bonusly, and also is in person, sitting right next to me. So it's very, very fun to be able to be together in person. And if you notice any weird audio things, please put that in the chat. But also, if you notice me looking over, that's because I'm looking directly at her. So Debra, would love to just have you introduce yourself. I'm skipping ahead. I apologize. First, we'll start with intros. Then we'll go into our performance enablement discussion, which is going to be the bulk of our chat today. And then I want to go into how that really feeds into the direction that we're going at Bonusly through Bonusly Achieve, and then have a little time for feedback, Q&A, but please don't hold on to your questions to the very end. Go ahead and submit those as they come up, because again, I want those to become a part of this conversation. And then I'll be sharing some resources and information with you on kind of what's coming next. So now, Debra, I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your experience with HR, as well as working, in tech.
Oh, sure. Thanks, Adrienne. I'm super excited to be here today talking about one of my most passionate topics, which is really unleashing people's potential for high performance. I have over 30 years experience in the HR domain. I started my career shockingly in the 90s. I can't believe I'm this old at this point. In-house in enterprise HR departments back in the day when you talked about like my HR tech experience. We had on-premise software at that point. And so I was on teams implementing Taleo for the first time, for example, and PeopleSoft, and we thought we were hot stuff at that point. Fast forward a bit, after that first decade of in-house HR experience, I moved into HR consulting and worked in a multi-client environment, helping companies with their people and talent strategies and aligning those to their business strategy and building great workplaces. I took that experience and pivoted again into the services industry, and I worked at TriNet, which is a professional employer organization, and was responsible for the human capital consulting practice, which were the team members that partnered with 7,000 customers to build their talent strategy, to ensure that they had strong benefits programs, and really be a partner to those businesses. That led me into working in the HR tech industry. After I left TriNet, I started at Namely, and I've been in a couple of different HR tech companies before Bonusly. At my core, I am committed to helping people make work better. I am a big advocate of getting my team and other team members and our customers' teams to a place where they're happy and thriving and bringing their best to bear for work. Is that what you were looking for?
Absolutely.
What you were asking for?
Well, I think it's really, powerful and shows why you are such a good fit at Bonusly, and kind of leads to my next slide, which is, understanding, I think, and setting the tone of the conversation with what Bonusly believes and kind of why we were started. And it's so much in line with what you just said and kind of what's important to you. But Bonusly was founded on the belief that people working on teams are the primary drivers of business success. And really our goal is we want to be constantly delivering tremendous value, building long-lasting and trusted relationships, not only with customers, but within the industry, across the organizations, so that we can build winning workplaces. And I've been with Bonusly now for almost 4.5 years, and I can say we're seeing more and more evidence every single day related to this concept. And we're really starting to see that, those best people at your organizations, they're not easily replaced. And a culture of collaboration, appreciation, and accomplishment can actually be game-changing for organizations, really, no matter what industry you're in. So one of the things that, was interesting for me to learn and kind of understand, but like incorporate it into my talk track is that Bonusly, we really think of the return of investment or ROI on people initiatives, people operations is built into the achievements of your company outcomes. So your outcomes are showing your return on investment for that, which I think is just really important. And I would love to kind of hear how that resonates with you. As being a leader in Bonusly, but prior to Bonusly, just with your experience.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this aligns with what I've spent my entire career working to do. This is definitely one of those situations where there's overlap in like my personal mission and what the company does and what our customers are trying to do. I believe that many of our great customers are committed to building winning teams and ultimately driving high performance, and that's why they partnered with Bonusly in the first place. But I think what might be interesting is that it makes it more compelling to me that I have a point of view as a customer success leader in this domain where we have the opportunity to help our customers do that. I've always held the philosophy that in order to deliver a great customer experience, you have to deliver a great or an exceptional team member experience. And the way to do this is through strong programs, tooling, and effective enabled people success managers. That's like the direct managers, the line managers responsible for the teams are really the crux of how you build high performing teams. I see a strong correlation to the impact that we're having on customers, enabling their HR practitioners and their managers to have greater impact on their teams.
Yeah, I really like how you position that in order to deliver a great customer experience, you have to deliver a great team member experience. As being a team member, can completely agree with that and how much power and impact that it really does have. And, I'd be curious, I think there's probably people on this call that would agree, if we think about employee experience metrics, things like engagement, retention, hiring, all those things are indicators that are tied directly to the impact of your business and business performance and outcomes. Which leads me to my next slide here. Don't want to jump too fast. Oh yeah, going into some of our recent research with Lighthouse, which has just been so interesting to see. A really great partnership with Lighthouse Research and Advisory. In this particular kind of example here, we were able to pinpoint ways that specifically employee engagement positively impacts business outcomes. I feel like we've been talking about that and it's kind of gone under the radar, but it's really nice to start to see it being quantified and able to be shared, because it's like, in my gut, this is true. I know this is true. I feel it. I participate in it on a regular basis, but it's nice to start having, that power of evidence behind it. But here you'll notice, the top 3 areas with the biggest financial impact include things like higher productivity and performance. Clearly, that's going to impact your business outcomes if people are more productive, if they're better performing, they're showing up to work, they're getting things done. Employee retention was that second one. And I know I can relate just from my own experience how costly turnover can be in hiring and that whole process that you're going through, and the time spent and the money and resources spent, as well as, that third piece, which I think is, again, correlates exactly to what you're saying, is that higher customer satisfaction. So employee engagement directly leads to higher customer satisfaction, which I just think is so cool because that's something we can influence and in a way control a little bit. So, based on this research, I think it's really clear, that's my opinion, that, the impact, we can see what that impact is, and that employee engagement, it can no longer be considered a nice to have. It's not like a perk or a fluff thing. It really needs to be a part of business strategy in order to really have long-term success over time and through change. And then as we think about it, okay, I've identified, all right, we know it impacts your business outcomes, and that can impact then business over time, whether or not you stay a business. And yet, we've seen that there's been so many challenges that are directly impacting people at work and their engagement at work. So if we look at my next slide here, over the last few years alone, organizations, talent leaders, and employees have really been dealt a tough hand. We all can relate to this. We've had that global pandemic, which has really, created real human loss, fear, ambiguity, stress. We've had the 100% remote work, and then that debate of, are we going back in office? Are we doing hybrid? What makes the most sense? And even seeing different companies, some that surprised me, announcing, return to office mandates when we've been able to show, hey, we can do that work outside of the office. We've also seen tough macroeconomic market conditions, layoffs, high turnover. That is still something that's going on, low morale, and also quiet quitting. So Debra, I'd love to hear, what is your take on this? Have you kind of seen similar trends, seen that similar impact?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I recently read Gallup's most recent study on the world of work 2024, and they were actually correlating the engagement and culture impact on people's mental health and feelings of loneliness really going up over the last few years based on what the world has gone through and just kind of the nature of the world that we live in today. And so this is all translated into a tremendous responsibility and weight on the shoulders of HR practitioners and people managers, because, we've talked for years about bringing your whole self to work, but the reality is, like, we're facing that in ways that we never had to before because of what we've gone through over the last 4 to 5 years. So it's really critical that we are focusing on, engaging our team members and supporting our managers and our HR teams through these challenging times and in the new world of work that we're living in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say, as we have titled on the slide here, it's employee engagement, it's critically endangered. Like, there is the red flag, again, no longer nice to have. It's like, you should have been thinking about this a couple of weeks ago versus right now.
Yeah, absolutely. The most recent study from Gallup shows that a whopping 80% of employees are disengaged, and that is a huge cost to organizations. So let's just step back and think about, what is an engaged employee? They bring positivity to the workplace. They tie their own success to their employer's success. There's alignment. They're consistently going above and beyond, bringing that elusive discretionary effort to bear. They contribute to the team. They're additive. They're people that you trust. They adapt well to change. They take up the company mission or new initiatives. And they have a growth mindset. They're demonstrating passion for learning and development and enhancing their skills, and as such, increasing their capabilities to deliver in the workplace. So if engaged employees are additive to the culture and performance, the impact of disengaged employees is something to really think about. They actually impede that growth. They impede the environment. They're literally detracting from the culture and slowing the business down. But the impact doesn't stop there. So you scale this problem across the organization. You have a disengaged employee sitting in a corner of the organization, but that compounds into an even bigger problem. Disengaged employees are burned out, and that leads to challenges for managers who have a lack of team cohesion. Either people are quiet quitting, they're not motivated, they take more effort, or they actually quit, and then you have turnover and other disruptions to the team dynamic, which then impacts the organization as a whole. Things like higher costs, decreases in revenue, and overall poor culture, uninspired managers, bad Glassdoor reviews. I think we've all experienced that. And so it's the snowball effect of the wrong kinds of environmental factors impacting business performance. And so we want to stop that snowball effect, really. So in total, this is a $322 billion with a B, dollar impact in lost productivity and turnover globally. In fact, Human Capital Magazine states that 54% of employees cite leaving a job due to a lack of appreciation. So we've often thought of like culture and engagement as soft and fluffy, it's the
Feelings.
yes, the feelings. There's tangible business impact, and we need to empower our HR practitioners and managers to be able to articulate the impact of the great work that they're doing or what they need from an investment perspective to drive business outcomes.
Yeah, I have to just stop and pause on this slide for a moment because these statistics and like the just number of dollar impact is alarming to me. Especially thinking about more than half of people leaving a job due to a lack of appreciation, which, okay, I'm biased. I work for Bonusly and it's ingrained into everyday workflow. But to me, oh, I can't believe I'm gonna say this. I almost feel like it's simple, like appreciation. We can do this. So these numbers are just really shocking to me, but I think it's good that it's being surfaced, which tells me, okay, there's hope, like we could fix it because we're recognizing it.
Yep, you're right. I mean, the impact of disengaged employees is a real problem for business performance. But the reality is it's a controllable problem and one that we're focused on solving by rethinking the concept of traditional performance management. So let's take a look at how the premise that drives us at Bonusly has informed how we built Bonusly. Again, our core belief is that people working on teams are the primary drivers of business success. There are three critical relationships at play in the workplace that have to be built and nurtured and empowered. The first is the organization with their employees. Employees want to be seen and recognized and appreciated for their humanness and for their impact. Companies have historically relied on HR team members to keep track of and acknowledge things like new hire welcome awards or anniversaries or birthdays. But they also have very manual processes for spot awards and bonuses and things like core value awards. A critical need in building the relationship between the company and the employee is making sure that no one and no key milestone is missed, no celebration gets missed. And so Bonusly makes this simple, freeing up the HR team's time to be spent more strategically.
Can I interrupt you just really quickly? Reflecting back on going to my first term, I couldn't believe not only, yes, so manual, so time consuming, but how many people I talked to that were like, we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
That was just so shocking. So sorry, I didn't mean to get you off track, but I was like, that was just, again, alarming to me.
Yeah, there's just such an opportunity to improve culture across the world in workplaces. The second relationship that has to be built is employees on teams and employees with each other. 5 years ago, no one could have imagined the radical transformation the workplace was going to go through with a global pandemic, lockdown, radical shifts in how companies can hire and deploy talent. And quite frankly, the world and the workplace is distributed and we're not going back. Yes, some big companies may have return to office mandates, but look at how many people are quitting those companies because of that. So I think, in the law of supply and demand, the talent will win here and they will come to workplaces where they have the opportunity to have the flexibility that they're looking for. And in that distributed workplace, employees need a way to engage meaningfully. Companies need a way for people to communicate about what matters in ways that are meaningful and to celebrate individual and team wins and celebrations. The reality is, back when I started my career, there was no remote work. It was all in office or on site. And so you built relationships in the break room when people were having lunch together, or you heard about big projects that people were working on or big accomplishments when you were at the water cooler. I know I sound like a dinosaur, but
ours was the foosball table.
Yeah, most recently pre-pandemic, yes. Culture is the foosball table and the LaCroix, sparkling water in the kitchen. So, Bonusly has addressed this in our Bonusly Connect product, which all of you as customers are using to build a meaningful culture of appreciation and connectivity, and to highlight the performance that makes a difference. And so you create a virtuous cycle of sharing those examples of people living the values of accomplishing great outcomes for the company or for their teams. And that just reinforces what good looks like at the company. But we know that there's this other element of managers with their teams, and all of the recent research demonstrates how critical that manager is to building high-performing teams. So managers are really the linchpin of team member success. And that's why I call them people success managers. It's a play on the customer success manager term, but like literally in the workplace, the people manager is the one who has the opportunity and the ability to drive high performance or not. So we have to empower them to do that. A supportive and effective manager can more than double employee engagement, which has an incredible impact when you think about it. Employees are more engaged when they feel seen and appreciated, when their goals for their career are addressed through meaningful coaching and ongoing support. And employee engagement really unlocks that discretionary effort, which powers innovation, outsized impact on the team and the company objectives, and unlocks business success. So when you take all three of these relationships that are critical together, they're critical to business success, and they're powered by Bonusly in the flow of work and in ways that resonate for companies, managers, and team members. The result is a highly engaged, high-performing culture that drives business outcomes predictably and delivers outsized impact.
Yeah, I just want to pause for 1 second, because when you're talking about the effects of that managers can more than double employee engagement. Okay, I think back to the slide where I talked about employee engagement impacts productivity and performance, impacts retention, impacts customer experience. So they are so important to that big picture. And I love that that is really where we are focusing our energy to make that better. So I don't know about you, but I feel like it's time to shift. It's time to shift the way that we're thinking. And, as we're kind of moving into this next section and talking about Bonusly Achieve, it's really talking about how performance management needs to now become performance enablement. I'll go through, I think we all know and are pretty familiar with traditional performance management. It's a process. It can be very long, time consuming, maybe left to the last minute because of other things, and then not reflecting the most accurate or best information. It can be a subjective assessment, inserting opinions, recency bias, things that potentially, I think, impact the accuracy of what we're looking at. Compensation driven, a lot of times coming top down. So it's one directional, right? It's not incorporating different perspectives within.
Can I just interject there?
Yeah.
How many times have you yourself been in a traditional performance review? It's, every 6 months or every year, and you can tell that your manager has not seen all the impact that you've had.
Yeah, I have been there. I've also been the person that's like, nothing has come before that conversation, and the anxiety is like crippling.
Yeah.
Even if you're like, think you're doing well, or maybe you realize, okay, maybe I could do better in areas, you blow it out of proportion so many times because there is limited communication and not a relationship there. And I just got goosebumps thinking about performance, like traditional performance management. Okay, gotta get rid of that. And all that to say, it's a lot of work, which is time spent, cost to the business.
Yeah.
So how can we make that better? Like, where do you see that shift going?
Yeah. I'm going to add one more that's not on the list here, because we're talking to HR practitioners on this webinar. And I know from sitting in seat how anxiety building or like anxiety creating this process is, not only from the perspective of how you chase down people and force them through the process, but also just being concerned about what's going on in those review meetings and how managers are handling those and whether they're really looking thoroughly at how they develop their talent to the fullest potential. So it's time for transformation, a paradigm shift. And I want to share with you what our view of performance enablement and engagement looks like. So you've heard us say this multiple times. We believe that people and teams are the drivers of business success. Successful teams are engaged in high performing, and Bonusly is the engine that drives that. It's a fundamental shift in the way organizations have traditionally viewed performance management, which were backward looking, top down, subject to a lot of recency bias and kind of just a sliver of what the employee has actually done over the course of that time. We believe that performance enablement is a practice, a ritual, if you will, not a process. It happens in the day-to-day, in the flow of work. It's informed by data, not only that the manager sees and can see in your systems, but also the data and insights that come from peers and others in the organization who are reporting on the great work that your team members are doing and providing constructive feedback on how they can improve. So it really unlocks the full organization to help each other get better. It's a 360 discussion more so than it is top down. It actively engages the employee in that process. It's positive and constructive, and it's also simple. Simplicity, I cannot emphasize the importance of simplicity in these processes. Managers and employees are busy doing their full-time jobs. We need to make it simple for people to unlock the full potential of their team members.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just one coming to the decision of like, we need, like, let's look at this, right? It's not working. Here's some valid reasons why, and what can we do to take action, to move things in a different direction that will not only empower people, but again, kind of just going back to that making work better. So I was really excited when you kind of our leadership and just the organization in general really were like, we're going to tackle this. Like, we believe in this, and we believe that there's an opportunity to help our customers, help, people throughout different industries, kind of shift the way they're thinking about performance and how we manage that.
Yeah. So engaged employees drive high performance. And this slide is for my friends sitting in the seat, our HR practitioners who have to justify the investment in their teams and in the programs that drive engagement. These are some great fact bombs that you can share. Focusing on your employees definitely directly impacts business success, and we have the data to prove it. Companies with high levels of employee engagement are a whopping 23% more profitable than companies with low engagement. In fact, companies with engaged employees financially outperform their competitors by 147%. It's a phenomenal impact focusing on engagement to drive high performance.
Yeah, and just as I think about, again, that concept of having engaged people at your organization, I feel like I feel like organizations, industries across the board for so long have just been kind of putting the effort in the wrong spot. Like, here's a new process, here's a way to fix this, here's a algorithm / math equation that I don't know that will help us solve this problem. And then what it all comes back to is our people and the culture, which kind of goes into the next slide.
Yep, absolutely. Culture is critical. It's truly, we look at this from the perspective that people thrive in cultures where their characteristics align with what the organization needs to attain its goals.
Yeah, I think that's so important, but something that jumps out to me is like the word culture is thrown around a lot. And it doesn't necessarily, I think, mean the same thing to every organization. I do know at Bonusly, we define culture as the combination of behaviors that bring people together in the pursuit of a common mission with shared values and characteristics. But I would love to hear a little bit more of how you feel, what the meaning of culture and the importance is, and then we'll talk a little bit about like what what are some of those things that kind of define it? Because I can tell you, hearing what defines, like what makes an engaged employee was so impactful. Like we talk about be engaged, be engaged, be engaged. What does that mean? So now let's look at like, well, what does a good high performing culture mean? Sorry.
Yeah.
So I will now let you answer the question I just kind of answered.
High performing cultures unleash the collective power of their people to deliver outsized impact. It's where people thrive and organizations excel. It has to be a win-win. And one of my favorite quotes is actually how our chief operating officer describes it. When personal journeys match the corporate journey, it creates magic, and that magic unlocks high performance. So let's talk about the characteristics of high performing cultures. A clearly defined mission that's understood and one that people are committed to. Company-wide alignment on the goals that drive the mission. Highly engaged team members with people that thrive and deliver outsized impact. Continuous improvement through timely feedback. And then a periodic structured evaluation process that is simple for performance measurement and talent development. So these are 5 of the critical components of creating a high performing culture or of a high performing culture.
Yeah, and I can just see our COO smiling and saying that quote. I can just picture it happening. That's so true. I love that. I love that you incorporated that in there. So in addition, right, we've got engagement, we have culture, and then what's that other piece that we kind of keep coming back to?
Our managers have the impact. They're really the crux in driving high performance. And we have historically made it really hard for our managers to do their jobs. In our Lighthouse Research sponsored study, managers said that there are companies who offer supportive performance on the job were 37% more likely to understand their job expectations and responsibilities. And managers said that the companies that didn't use modern helpful tools to support them on the job were 2 times as likely to say the company's culture prevents them from doing their best work.
That just kind of sticks out to me of like, where do we place responsibility and accountability, and how does that look to employees versus employers? So I think that that's a really interesting kind of finding from that research study.
Yeah. More great findings when we asked what practices have the biggest impact on improving employee engagement and the employee experience. Those manager one-on-ones and check-ins were at the top of the list of what added the most value to drive business impact. That was followed by rewards and recognition and performance management. So managers are craving help in doing this well. Employees are also craving the opportunity to engage meaningfully with their managers so that they can achieve their best performance.
Yeah, I think it's telling that, that one-on-one interaction with managers and their employees. I mean, that's not surprising to me, but it also makes me wonder, okay, we're recognizing, hey, this is really important. Are we doing it right? Like, is it working? Like, how's that going? Which is a question that I wanted to pose to the audience here. And we'll see if I'm able to do 2 polls in one. I'm a little nervous. But our next poll really wants, we're checking in on, are you having those conversations, those one-on-ones, the developing relationships with managers to employees? And are you confident that they're consistent and they're working and it's going well? So this one's just kind of a rating. Let me launch that so everyone can see, give you all a chance. Can you see it?
I can see it, yes.
Okay. Yeah, just curious, like, are they working for you? Or is that something that's like, oh yeah, we could, we have some room for improvement. And, I see we have a hand raised. Angela, do you feel like you're okay talking? Because I just unmuted you. You're welcome to talk if you want, or potentially put it in chat as well. You will have to unmute yourself though. Okay, well, in case you are saying something, I am not able to hear. I think you're just still on mute. So just know that you are welcome to chime in. You're welcome to chat. Either way, we'd love to hear from you. I also know that there has been times when I have raised my hand and didn't even realize it. So if that's the case, that is okay too. So yeah, just want to check here. Okay, we've got some answers coming in. I want to also share this with the group so we can kind of see, you know, where we stand here. So give me 1 second to end the poll and share some results. Can you see them?
I can.
Oh, great. Because last time I forgot that I was still sharing and I luckily caught it a couple of minutes later. But, you know, as we can see here, we don't have anyone that is extremely confident that the way things are going right now it's working. It's what we need to do. And we are, you know, trending more on that side of, hey, not as confident that we are where we need to be. And I think that kind of is in line with what I expected, if I'm being honest. We know how important managers are and these relationships are, but with this lower confidence, you know, why do you think that is? If we know it's important, why are we kind of in this space of like, we're not 100% confident that this is really achieving what we need it to?
Yeah. Well, I mean, often we promote people into management roles who are great individual contributors, but we don't back them up with, and we don't often have time for all of the training necessary to give them the skills that they need. And then we put them into processes and tooling that actually distract them. And they're operating in an environment where, you know, there have been lots of team restructuring, which can lead to burnout, low morale, and like more people management burden in working with those employees on that team. And many managers have responsibilities beyond just managing people, and they may manage teams of, you know, upwards of 12 to 15 individuals. Their span of control is overwhelming. So it's really, you know, we can't control for every factor, and I think management will always be challenging because it's a role that has significant responsibility for humans and their growth, development, and performance.
I think if we just even stop for a second and think about traditional performance management and you have 15 direct reports, that's literally the only thing you're doing. And is that where you should be spending your time?
Yeah.
So that alone is kind of like a reason to be like, hey, we need to rethink some things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people managers are definitely the key to employee and company success, but they need to have the right environment and tooling in which to thrive. And that's our responsibility. And what you can see here is that managers need us to give them the tools and support to be effective. Essentially, managers who are going through the motions have a much higher impact on turnover, like negative impact on turnover. But it's actually not much different from managers who are trying, but just too busy. So caring is not the only element that's going to drive a better outcome here. We really need to provide managers with the tools and support to help them help their teams perform at their best. And if we can get it right for the managers will be able to get it right for their team members. That's really what I want you to take away from this slide.
Yeah. And I think one thing to point out with all this being said, you know, great ideas, kind of like some suggested, here's how we move forward. But at the end of the day, it comes down to time and money, and bringing together a high-performing team is not easy. Empowering our managers, setting them up for success takes time, takes effort, takes resources. You know, we've been talking about the heavy workload that people have. We're working on skeleton crews where it's like you're wearing so many hats that you have to choose which hat is most important that day. Or, maybe there's been a lot of change happening and that impacts trust within an organization that then impacts the ability to bring people together and, create these high performing teams. And then work just starts to take over and I think, lose sight of those growth opportunities and growing our people, which again ripples out, right? Like in the moment, it might not seem, okay, no, this is what's most important. This is the priority. But over time, that has such a big impact that we're really just scratching the surface and seeing like, oh my gosh, this is where we need to focus. Which is, kind of really why we're here. I mean, I think a lot about what we talked about, though we have some really cool new research, it's not like novel, we've been talking about this, we're kind of aware it's happening. But what I am excited to share is what we're thinking, is our direction, where we're going at Bonusly, and how this fits into that picture. So not sure if you heard recently, but during SHRM, we had some really exciting news. You may have been a part of some of our product calls that we've kind of led up to, but we've released a new product with Bonusly, and it's called Bonusly Achieve. And it is designed to directly fit into this space and help solve this problem. So within Achieve, we believe that this needs to be a people-centric approach that lets us use the strength of our connections, right? Bonusly is already kind of building that up. Use appreciation, frequent interaction, and apply that and use that as a strength to help enable performance. So Debra, as a member of our executive leadership team, I would love to hear from you. Can you describe kind of the vision? Like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've laid out the case for what's broken. So I won't go there, but I will summarize it in this. We believe that in most workplaces, because of outdated practices, poor tooling, and poor enablement, employees can't achieve their full potential and impact, and business results suffer. Bonusly Achieve fosters a mindset and a culture where employees are motivated and managers are empowered to continuously improve with timely and organic coaching and feedback from the manager to the employee and from the peer group. So employees can achieve their highest potential and really thrive and be happy.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that as we, launch Bonusly Achieve, we haven't launched just a feature. We haven't just launched a tool. This is truly a mindset, like a way to approach, performance enablement. And I will just say, you may have seen, may have not yet, but our debut feature is really focusing on what we've been talking about, which are those relationships between the manager, between employees, that check-in that's happening on a regular basis. And what we want to do is start to build around that. We want to model these connections that we've seen to be so powerful off of things that we already know are working or are best practices. For instance, we want to encourage people to be prepared so that this agenda is set and you're coming together in a meaningful way. We also see that being human really helps to break down barriers, increase communication, and I think bring out the powerful conversations that actually matter versus just going through the motions. Some other things that we're really factoring into this kind of first feature set is being development focused, forward focused, growth mindset. It's not just what happened, in the past. It's kind of like, how do we constantly and continuously check in on this, talk about this, and basically build a partnership for growth, not only for individuals, but that will then trickle out to business.
So when we think about unlocking the power of continuous performance coaching, we know that most people are on either an annual or biannual review process. And if you think about it, you've got 52 weeks in a year. 98% of CHROs know their performance management is broken. Only 2% believe that it's working. And it's not surprising. If I, as a manager, provide you feedback on something that you could have done better 10 months ago, you spent 10 months without the benefit of being able to address that. If I can actually recall what happened 10 months
Yeah, I'm
ago.
like, are we even still doing that?
I don't
Like,
even know what I had for breakfast and it's just now lunchtime. So think about a world in which we make it easy for you to complete your annual or your semi-annual review. Because through Bonusly Achieve, you're actually incorporating the right conversations and keeping track of the agreements, the alignment of goal achievement, of feedback and coaching, wins, and development planning in your day-to-day flow of work. Managers and employees meet together for check-ins either every week or every other week. They have the opportunity to connect, ensure that they're aligned on priorities. The employee can ask for help getting unblocked so that they can achieve outcomes and expectations. It gives you an opportunity to celebrate wins, to celebrate birthdays and anniversaries, because we remind you right there in the platform. You can incorporate development planning right into the flow of those check-ins. We recommend at least once a month, reflecting on the work that you're doing together to help build skills or increase impact. It gives you a platform to engage in meaningful dialogue around how you're developing those skills and capabilities. And then looking back at the end of each quarter, at the peer feedback, at meeting effectiveness, providing feedback on the process, the ritual, the experience as well, so that we each get better in our check-ins. And then at the end of the time frame, and it's time to roll into the true look back performance review process, you just pull all of that data out of Bonusly in a single view, and you're ready to go. No searching back through your emails, no searching back through Slack messages, no trying to remember, no sneak peeking at the self-evaluation to see what the employee says. You're prepared as a manager, but so is the employee. So I see Julia's question. It's not in the context of OKR tracking. So the question is goal setting OKR tracking part of the skills and objectives piece? Yes, we have the ability to set objectives. It's not in the OKR format like you've seen historically where it gets rolled down. It's in the individual and manager check-in and format. And then you can collect feedback, provide coaching and progress toward accomplishing that objective, whether it's a goal to achieve a particular outcome, whether it's a development objective. It works very similar. And so Bonusly Achieve makes it easy. I'm with you, Debra. I have a hard time remembering what I did this morning, much less, a quarter ago.
that is so true. And then you throw in like any sort of recency bias of good or bad, and how that impacts and shapes our opinions and kind of approach to things. Let's see here.
Do only the employee and manager have access to view the objectives? Admins and managers of the reporting relationship do as well. So it's not exclusive to the employee and manager, but it's also not as of currently in a format that rolls into kind of an objectives page or anything along those lines.
But I like the concept of having some analytics and data behind who is using it and taking like full advantage of it, because it then identifies opportunities, I think, to maybe, hey, could we try this better? Or I've noticed you aren't doing this. I mean, think about right now, do we even know if people are doing one-on-ones? When are they? How are they going?
What's the quality of them?
It's kind of a play or choose your own adventure type of scenario. And this, I think, gives more of a picture organizationally of how those relationships are building. I think it's less important for admins with the data piece to like, we don't need to know what individual, it's more of like, is this happening? Is it going well? Are we seeing improvements? That type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So love those questions. Keep them coming in if you have any. Really what I want to talk about next is that we have an opportunity to join in and become an early access partner for Achieve. And I'm going to have Debra talk a little bit about what that means. But this is really kind of the first step in the new direction of how we are really focusing on enabling performance. And the great thing is we have that foundation of connection, of recognition, and it's pretty popular. Like people like it. So it's not, I feel like we're not starting from scratch.
Yeah.
We're almost just taking that next evolutionary step to solve a problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah.
So I would love for Debra to speak just a little bit on, well, what does it mean to be an early access partner? And then just to note, in case you joined in a little bit later than the very beginning, I will share this out with you. You know, you'll have links that you can access on your own, as well as click directly through if you are interested in checking out and joining us as an early access Achieve partner.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me tell you a little bit about what that means. So early access is a program that we have beyond Achieve, and we'll talk about those collaboration programs in a minute. With Achieve, that's a new product. And so signing up for early access means you have access to it before other companies have access to it, and you have it at no cost for a period of time. This is a separate product, so there isn't an incremental cost associated with it, that we're typically tying that in at like probably the January timeframe. So you have several months to get your hands on this. You should know that we have high velocity in our product development, so you see features change very quickly within this product as we get ready to move it into full general availability. So that is a nuance with early access. It does give you the opportunity to provide feedback. In fact, there's a button right in the Achieve module where you, your managers and employees can provide feedback on the experience that goes directly to our product team. So you have the opportunity to shape how we focus on prioritizing work in Achieve. So it's a good opportunity to have influence over the roadmap. And so if you join as an early access partner, you'll have access through the end of December. And then we can share more with you on what adding it as a module would look like based on when you renew and all those details. So I won't bore you with that today, but that's the opportunity essentially.
Yeah.
So and we would be able to provide access in the next few weeks.
Yeah, which is, I mean, if you think about it, a really unique opportunity to like test it,
Yeah.
you know, like kind of get your hands in there and just take today's concepts and what we're talking about and see how we can put them into action. Because I can tell you all these great stats and we can tell you about all these beautiful things happening, but what it really comes down to is like, what does this do for me? How do I use it? So this is a great opportunity for that.
Yeah, and things to think about. One is like our team is still getting accustomed to supporting this product, so it can be a little like less elegant, and we may have to chase down an answer because things are changing quickly and it's a new product. The other thing to think about is, you know, do you want to think about rolling it out to your whole team? Do you want to pilot it with the department? And we can support you in sharing what we've learned about the rollout process and what has worked. And you can provide us feedback on what else may be helpful in the rollout process as we mature our practices around delivering this product when it goes fully GA is what we call it, generally available.
Yeah. You know, and in addition to Achieve, we have quite a few opportunities to just get involved, become more involved with Bonusly, really start to have, you know, a deeper connection and be able to be a part of our customer collaboration programs. You'll see there's a few different examples here from product research. We've been talking a little bit about early access, appreciation research, which is another product that we have built and are currently, you know, kind of pushing that out into the world. But I really love the opportunities as well for thought leadership, partnering on building that talk track that's going to help with change, like make change happen. And then customer spotlights, those are my favorite. That's when we have you come into our all hands and just tell us what it's like. How is Bonusly working? How's it going for your team? Feedback. Though we love a little bit of praise, we are Bonusly. We want to hear the real talk coming directly from our customers, and that has been so powerful to the entire team. Having that experience, seeing that feedback coming directly from our customers.
And one of the things that I'd just like to add on to what Adrienne has shared about these opportunities to get more deeply involved with Bonusly. Our commitment is to put our customers at the center of the decisions that we're making in everything that we do, and to ensure that every team member at Bonusly has a deep understanding of the problems that we solve and who we're solving it for. So this is an opportunity to provide direct feedback to product and engineering. For example, when you join early access and product research, the customer spotlight is just such a great opportunity to share with all of Bonusly. So people who work in operations or engineering or other teams where they don't normally get to engage with customers hear what the customer experience is, and it makes us all better stewards of improving that customer experience over time. So.
Yeah, and Julia, excuse me, just so I can confirm, you will get a follow-up email. It will have a link to the recording as well as some resources that I'm showing here on the next page, just some good thought leadership content from our content team. And while I didn't give us enough time to do this, it's also going to include a link for some feedback, because I've been doing these best practice sessions for a while. And what I really want to hear is, what do you want to hear about? What would be meaningful to you? What was, good, or what could be improved about this session? So I encourage you to share your feedback, let us know. And just want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of what I think is a journey that's going to not only be exciting, but I think really have some huge impact.